Okay, so hey guys, today I'm going to be teaching you about Python. It's a programming language that is used for primarily coding. It's very popular in data science as well as for graphing and for other purposes like AI. So this is basically a beginner friendly tutorial. This is if you have no knowledge about Python whatsoever, or any programming knowledge. Um, this course would or this session would allow you to understand Python better by the end of it. And now we're going to get over with the installation process. So to install Python, you need to search up Python and go to Python's official site, which is python.org. And over here, I would always recommend you to download the most stable version and the latest most stable version. So the latest most stable version will be all releases. I would recommend you take the newer it is, the better. I would recommend you take 3.8 or 3.7. In this tutorial, I'll be using 3.8.2. If I'm correct, so here, this one. And you should first install it. You go down here, files. Depending on which OS you have, if you have Mac, you use this one. If you would have Windows, you would use the executable one. And then depending if you have 64 or 32. So it's installed, and now you click on Python. That'll load. This is a very straightforward process of installation, so this won't take you much time, and I'm trying to get this over with quickly so we can start with the basics of Python. As this is required, I will mention this in the video. This takes a bit of time. I might speed this up. Okay, so here you go to, because I've already have installed Python 3.8.2. Back. Over here, generally speaking, you might have an add to path box over here. Either here there'll be one box ticked for you. Then under here there should be an add to path box. You should tick on that because it is really important, as Python won't run properly if you do not use this. Because I've already installed Python, I won't install it again. And now I would prefer if you guys would use an IDE or an integrate development environment. This is basically to help you write code faster and easier. This has many features that normal IDEs don't have, or the inbuilt, which is idle from Python. You may use that and continue with it, but if you would like to use the same IDE as me, we'd be using Visual Studio Code, my preferred IDE. You go to Visual Studio Code. This is very simple. It's a similar process. You just click download here. If you're in Windows, it should straight away come Windows over here. Or you can click the down arrow and search for your particular OS, and you should get the build. And yeah, that should be about it. So when you open up, whenever you want to start with Visual Studio, when you open it, you might get something like this, a welcome page. And whichever folder you want to work in, you just take that folder and drag it into here, and it should start working, and you should get this window. So first we're going to be creating a new file. To create a new file, you either click over here, or you right click, and then you click new file. So you're going to name your file. You can name your file whatever you want. For this YouTube video, I'd be naming it YouTube, just for me to remember. And you have to have an extension of .py, because we're indicating that it's a Python file and we are trying to code in Python. And when you're using idle, generally it's you would have to go to the extensions and download Python. As you can see here, I've already got it installed. It would be recommended for you to download Python. So recommended, it's required for Visual Studio Code. If you're using idle, this is not required. And right here, down here, we would first get a new terminal. A terminal is required. It's not required if you're using the idle, but when you're using Visual Studio Code, it's required to use a terminal. But it won't be extremely necessary, as when you want to run your code, you could just left click and click run Python file in terminal. But I'll teach you how to run it without clicking that button and just directly doing it. So first thing in this video is I'm going to teach you guys about the basic data types, or variables rather. So in Python we store data, or we basically the use of Python is to perform programs or set of instructions so that they give you an output that you want. So we have ways to store this data that we want to get from the user, or we provide. So we store this in sort of structures known as variables, and a variable is generally defined, or it's known as definition by, or assignment by Craig equals to, or by, like, we could use sums of total something, and we can be like, okay, we can give a name of x equals to 1. Okay, so now this is a variable. This stores the value of x. So x is always gonna, whenever you type x or whenever you mention x in your code, it's gonna equal to 1. So the different types of data you have is an integer, int. An integer is basically a number, or a whole number rather. Then you have float, or it's also known as, a full form for this would be floating point, which would be any decimal integer, not integers, I meant in decimal. Then you would have a boolean, or bool, or either, whatever you like to write. And booleans are basically true or false. This basically states whether something is supposed to happen, is it yes, or true, or no, which is like false. And they generally mentioned in Python by keeping the first letter caps, true, sorry, and then or false. And then you would have text. So text or string, as mentioned as it's used by programmers across the world. A string would be something that is written within quotation marks. This may be a number or letters, but it's generally used for letters. When you cannot do addition and general mathematics if you mention a number in a string, but this is basically used for characters, or for a bunch of characters or text. That's what strings are used for. So these are basic data types that we are going to use. There are some other more ones, but they're not really required. And so, and then over here you should see here your Python version should be mentioned here if you have added to the path properly. So right now we're gonna be trying to do a basic program using an if statement. So using it, okay, so we're gonna be trying to learn about the different operators and how we're gonna run our code. We're gonna first make our first ever code. So we also have something known as commenting, which is basically a text or something that is used or written for our reference. This is not going to be run in the code. Like, I could be like, this is a program to add two numbers, and you have to click Control S to save your work, otherwise it won't be saved. So this won't be run anywhere. This is not a part of the code. This is just for my reference. So we're gonna add two numbers. Okay, okay, so now we're gonna gonna give a variable known as x a value. So x could be any integer. I'm going to give a random number as like 4, and then we're going to give another variable, the value of maybe 6. Okay, so you can write it just the way it's mentioned is the variable name of the identifier that you require, then an equal to sign, and then what is contained within this variable. So now now the way you output data, or the way you show data on the screen in Python, is by using something known as a print statement, print, and it's within parentheses or brackets, and whatever you write within it will be printed out into the screen, as I'll show you in a second. So x plus y, this would be a basic thing, which would be 6 plus 4, which would be 10. So to run our code, you may either left click and click run Python file in terminal. which will give you the value of 10, which is true. Or you could type Python in your file name if you're within the directories, which would be youtube.py 10. Okay, so this is basically addition. This is one of the basic operators or mathematical operators that we have. Then you have minus, which would be 4 minus 6, which would be 2 minus 2. And then you have division. This won't divide properly, so I'll just use a value of 12, which is simpler. This would divide. The division sign is basically a slash. I'm not sure whether it's a forward or backwards because I'm really bad at identifying those two, but a slash 2.2. And this is basically, this division sign is basically something known as a float division or a real division. This is not an integer division, as you see the output that comes out will be in the format of a float, of a floating point or a decimal point. And if you have two slashes, it basically means integer division. So it'll basically remove any of the decimal part. It won't round it, but it'll just remove any of the decimal part. For example, if it's 2.5, it would just remove the 0.5 at the ending and keep it as 2 and not round it up to 3. So that's basically integer division. I'll give you an example of maybe, let's say 11 divided by 2, which would give you something around 5.5. And it would, an integer division, they would basically just remove the 0.5 at the ending and give you 5. If I'm correct, yeah, see? But the actual value is 5.5. And then you have multiplication, which is basically used or indicated by an asterisk. So yeah, it should be 22. 11 into 2 should be 22. And that's basically the most simplest operators that we have. There are many more, like exponents and many others. So I'm going to be talking to you now about selection. So selection is basically a decision that it should be made. Now we have a selection statement, maybe an if statement, which is the most prominent selection statement, or if not the only one, which is not an iteration. So an iteration basically looping. We'll get to that in a later episode or later video. So an if statement is written by using if and then using some sort of condition. So a condition could be if x is greater than y, could be a condition, and we could basically print maybe x is greater than y. Okay, and then we could be like else. So else is basically if this condition that I've mentioned on top does not occur, then this code should be written. And we also have something known as indentation. As you can see here, this is space. You create the space by clicking the tab button on your laptop or your PC. So this tab indicates all the code that's supposed to come under this if statement. You can see here this arrow. Because you won't have this in idle, but you'll have this in Visual Studio Code. So all this code that comes after the indent would be basically under this if statement. So if this condition is true, all the code that is based on top of this on this intent will be run. And if this condition isn't true, then we have something known as an else statement, which should basically be like, if this is true, if this is not true, then you go to this part. So we could be like print. The only other possibility would be y is greater than x. And yeah, so currently x is greater than y. So according to my intuition, this should print out x is greater than y. Yeah, as I said. And if you were to like change the values, basically make this lower 3, this may be 16, and make sure to save. If you don't want to save, you can use autosave on the preferences. I do not need to save because I have autosave on, but otherwise you can click Ctrl S and y is greater than x. You can have conditions like greater than or equal to, which is basically this sign. Anything that has an equal to after would be or equal to. So it's greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. These are very self-explanatory. Basically means if this value is greater than or the value is equal to. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then there is dot equal to, which is basically an exclamation mark and an equal to sign. And then we can also have statements like not, like you would have a not before this, which basically means if this condition is not true, then only you should print the statement, which should basically be a less than sign symbol in this condition. So yeah, a not is basically if it's not true. And I think this is about it for this video. In the next video, I should start covering inputs, as it's pretty important and it'll be much easier to explain the further parts in this series. So I would like you to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you like my content. This is my first time ever trying to do something like this, so I would hope or ask you if to please support my channel and tell me what are your thoughts about the videos I'm doing down below in the comments. Thank you.